I found afterwards, after the fact, that Larry came up and said, "Coach, I didn't have the heart to tell you that two of your best players were going to transfer." but we actually eventually accomplished that, and it leads me to the thing that I remember most about Larry. It's really simplistic, but I think it's really truthful. Anytime we had a really significant win, or our season ended short of what our expectation was, and we had a really tough ending, Larry would do an interview, and probably 10 seconds after he asked the question, I started answering it, and tears were flowing down his cheek. And that told me exactly what Larry Happel is and what Central means to him. I can talk directly to softball. It was way beyond an SID. His relationship with the players, his friendship that I've been able to develop with him, and I mean that in all sincerity, because it wasn't just this friendship where he patted you on the back every time. He would sometimes challenge you. He would sometimes say, "Did you really want to say that to the umpire in that moment?" And I'd have to give a real tough answer because I respected Larry's opinion quite a bit. In my tenure here, I think, and being respectful to everybody else that's been here, there are three people that I consider icons at Central. President Ken Weller, Ron Skipper, and I think a third one goes on that ledger tonight, and Larry Happel. Congrats, Larry.
I do have, I think, kind of a unique perspective. Larry is very much a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. In fact, I think he'd rather be behind the barn doors. And I think that is illustrative of what he wanted the student-athlete experience to be. He sometimes jokes that he's the tall, skinny guy in the corner that student-athletes probably know his name, or maybe they gave him his leftovers at Wendy's after the meal, but I think student-athletes really have no idea the commitment, the time, the energy that it took for him to lift us up and tell our stories the way that he did. And no offense to 18 to 22-year-olds, but I don't know how many college kids, while they're here, really understand his impact. Folks like me were fortunate that we worked for Larry. I did it for 4 years. I should have introduced myself. I'm Molly Parrott. I live up in Ames. I'm an O2 alum. I played basketball and softball. And had an amazing experience on the court and on the softball field, but I think it was a seminal experience was working for Larry for 4 years. I've had a career in higher education. Much of that was in college athletics. And for me, the opportunities he provided to have real experience on the sidelines and understanding professionalism and how to do the work really well. Central had extremely successful teams in my era. The football team, it seemed like we hosted NCAA playoff games every year. I was in the sweaty press box in August and September on the stat crew. Kuiper Gym was always rocking when Abby Brown and Candace Wilson and all those amazing women were playing for Megan's teams. And to be on the official stat crew for an NCAA Final Four is a pretty amazing experience I was 20 years old at that time. So he taught us that we were to be professional. And in our hearts, we wanted Central to win, and we wanted our fellow Central students to do well. We were there to do a job, and that job was important, and the statistics matter. And we were there to not only serve the Central students and the coaches, but the opposing team as well. And so while we get goosebumps, just like everybody else in Kuiper Gym in that Final Four, we had to tone it down and somehow keep it together because we had an important job to do on that stat crew. And that is experience as a young professional that, as I look back, gave me a ton of confidence going into the real world. As a college kid, you have a few things on your resume, but to have real world experiences that are valuable that you can talk about and you can have confidence in when you move on to the professional ranks and whatever your chosen profession is, I really value that a lot. Probably one of the things I appreciate also about Larry is his self-deprecating humor and his dry sense of humor. And for many years, we kept in touch and still do. But he would always sign off his emails, YFB, your favorite boss. So thank you, Larry, for all that you do for Central student athletes, and enjoy the weekends. What will that look like? Enjoy it, you earned it.
I'm Abby Gonzalez Larson, and I was a student worker for Larry, and I was also a student athlete and ran track, and graduated in 2002. And when I started working for Larry my freshman year, it was mostly because my older sister, Sunny, was writing for him at that time, And I think she was told she wasn't going to be able to graduate until she found a replacement. So I took my chances, and I was glad to take that opportunity to do that and get out of the cafeteria dish room. I'm sure a lot of student workers were very eager to work for Larry to get out of that dish room. So anyway, working for Larry that first year, it basically was giving me a key to the office and letting me write press releases on Sunday afternoons and emailing with him. So I had very little interaction with Larry, and I think that was probably good for both of us. He knew better than to let me write any of the track releases, though, because I had Olympic times. I didn't really know Larry all that well until he was looking to get away on sabbatical, and he needed a chump to take over his position. And so I had just finished a 10-month internship at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, and looking back, I really didn't enjoy that position all that well, but I didn't want to say no to Larry. And so somehow he got me to be him at Central. I don't know how, but luckily for all of us, Larry was able to tell me exactly what to do and how to do it every second of every day, which ultimately means he did not really have a sabbatical. He was worse off having 2 jobs. So Larry was a great boss. I mean, he's the greatest SID of all time. Sorry, Dave. But it's hard to say that he's the greatest boss I've ever had, because I grew up working for my dad at the newspaper, and now I'm working for my husband as his legal assistant. So top 3 is pretty good. Larry taught me a lot. I learned about sports and information. And that MLA style didn't matter in sports information. AP style is what matters. But what I found out later in life is that AP style does not transfer over to legal documents. That would have been helpful to know. So I was pretty nervous to speak tonight, because I knew anything I said or tried to write wouldn't even come close to what Larry can do, and also what he deserves from his former student workers. If only I had Larry ghostwrite this, then it would have been quick. Congratulations, Larry. Have a wonderful retirement. You deserve it. And I hope you can enjoy some Casey's Pizza on a Thursday night watching football with some friends.
You know, sometimes when you're speaking at things, it's really hard to know what to say. When I was thinking about Larry over the weekend, it was the easiest thing ever. Easiest thing ever. And what really inspired me that made it so easy is you're watching the Olympics and you hear people over and over and over again, whether it's Simone Biles or Spencer Lee or these amazing, they've sacrificed so much for themselves for this one opportunity. Hey, I've sacrificed everything in my life for this one opportunity for me. And I'm like, Larry Happel was the exact opposite of that. For the better part of half of his life, he sacrificed everything in the world for other people. And I just think that is so refreshing and unique, and especially in the world of sports. I coach an individual sport, and I used to always say that, hey, you got to be a little selfish. You got to be more than selfish. You got to sacrifice so much so that you get that prize, whatever you're aspiring for. And I just could not help but reflect over the last couple of days as I watched the Olympics of somebody who's given all that athletes have given and much more for everybody else in the world. For everybody else in the world, and what an unbelievable trait that is. And it was a little bit unique when I was trying to explain to the gals and George of why we, the people that we talked to, kind of picked them out. And I said, well, a student worker and a friend, a coach and a friend, an alumni, student athlete and a friend. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much summarizes everybody with Larry. It's whatever you were and a friend that you knew you could count on for the rest of your life. And I love that. He told me once, he's like, if I'm ever too sarcastic, I'm sorry, that's just my love language. Mine too. Mine too. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So on behalf of everybody that's here, Larry, and on behalf of everybody that's not here, I think thank you enough for the selfless commitment you've made, the loyalty to Central College, and the life that you've changed. Thank you so much, Larry Happel.
Thank you all for coming. I am using notes. So when I get through this, and I will not make eye contact with the people I'm speaking about. So, it's, there's been so many games and so many exciting moments and blah, blah, blah. It's you people, and for people who aren't here, that's what I remember, and that's what it's mostly. Thanks for coming. Special thanks to Mary Benedict, the alumni office, all the work they did, and also for apparently promising money to get this many people to show up. Checks at the door. I'm a little conflicted about all of this. As much as I love seeing all of you, I'm really uncomfortable being the center of attention. I'm used to looking out over the crowd from the press box, and the only time they turn and look at me is when the scoreboard stops working. Before I start with all the thank yous, and I am going to make you sit through the thank yous, I first want to issue a blanket apology to anyone who had to work with me, especially my student workers during the game days when I get a little stressed. Endlessly reminding them that they need to sweat the small stuff and take care of the details, although I always believe that matters. My brothers and I have been told that our grandfather who passed away before we were born was extremely hard-headed, and apparently he passed on these stubbornness genes to each of us. So that's been kind of a Happel gift, and we've all had to put up with this. But essentially, you can blame Gary Timmer, who's here tonight, and President Ken Weller for making you deal with me. In 1979, I was finishing my junior year at Central, and Gary, I was interviewing him for a story, and he said he wanted to offer me a job as sports information director. I didn't know what one was. He promised to pay me $5,000 a year. For over 45 years, I can tell you the job has changed a lot more than the salary. It probably doesn't say much for my career ambition that I still had the same job in 2024. During my career, I was often asked why I didn't leave Central. Of course, the person who usually asked this was my boss. There were some life circumstances that kept me here, but chief among the reasons I stayed are the people in this room, along with so many others, as well as the fact I never found a job I liked better. On the rare occasion I had to actually do any manual labor, after about 10 minutes I'd find myself wondering, how soon can I go back to the office? The reality is, as my family and others have been telling me, it's probably past time for me to retire. Joe Flaherty threatened to leave if I talked about him. He's more than ready to take our sports information operation to new heights. He'll be outstanding. He and the other young SIDs take photos and videos better than me. They know Photoshop and sidearm and InDesign and NSAGing is software better than me. They tweet better than me, and I bet money they parallel park better than I do. I thank Joe for all the support he's provided us 10 years, and I will continue in a temporary part-time role as part of my rehab process. I hope I can provide some support for him during that time. I'm most thankful that my family is here tonight. They've put up with me missing countless family events because of work. And they just got tired of hearing about it. So Larry can't come because it's falling between Labor Day and Memorial Day. And yes, I have worked on Christmas. My brother, Charlie, who with his wife Ann now lives most of the time in Waynesboro, Minnesota, seems to have forgiven me for missing his wedding when I was working at the University of Tennessee. And my brother Joel and his wife Susan came here, officially now Clear Lake residents. And I did go to their wedding, although they somehow didn't check the Central football schedule when they got married in 2001. I had to miss the home season opener. And my cousin Mark Hanna and his wife Barb, who graciously came, and I'm so excited to have them with us tonight. Mark actually coached with George Larson. Nesco High School back in Missouri. So we compare George Ware stories. Almost family are Dave and the Denise Baker, all the way from Conyers, Georgia tonight. Denise is a Hall of Honor member, one of the scoring leaders actually. Emily Hansen broke her record as the all-time leading scorer at Central. And it will not surprise you that I first met Dave when he became Grand Lemon. We've been in touch just about every day since. He recently told me our current text thread has more than 37,000 messages, most of which are probably quotes from MASH reruns. He's been my lifeline. When I'm alone in my office and colleagues hear laughter, they'll roll their eyes and say, he's on the phone with Baker. I've been so lucky to work with pillars of Central like President Weller, Coach Skipper, and Coach Wares. It's probably fair to say I love Coach Wares like a brother, because brothers know every flaw and every annoying habit each other has, and they care about each other. And even though President Weller has passed away, I'm blessed that I can still go visit Shirley. Shirley Weller at 97 is blessed with more common sense than anyone I know. And for some reason, she's always been my #1 fan. Shirley. There's so many I'm grateful I worked with and for, like Athletics Directors Eric Van Kley at Al Dornkamp. Al does so much for others that gets little notice, but he's always someone you can count on. He flew to Nashville to support me when I received an award. He once paid money out of his own, doesn't like to publicize this, paid money out of his own pocket so I could have an assistant for a year. And being housed at the gym these past 6 or 7 years has been wonderful. I'm so lucky to have an office with Eric on one side and Alicia O'Brien on the other. They've both become such supportive and trusted friends, and I value that more than they know. It's especially meaningful to me that some of my fellow SIDs made the trip here tonight. Dave Blanchard, who's experiencing life on the other side, is retirement now at Luther College, and Katie Jo Svensson and Darren from Warburg/Luther. Somehow, when you're alone in the office on a Saturday night doing this job, and you're trying to do about 6 things at once because it's all coming in at once, it's somehow it's reassuring though there's other SIDs at all these schools across the country, across the region, that we're experiencing the same things. And we can share messages with each other, and only another SID can truly understand what we're going through and the sacrifices we make and why we do this crazy job. Our schools and teams are intensely competitive, but SIDs are a box full of friends. And it means more than you know. They say that friends you make in college become lifetime friends. I've got living proof. I've known Brian Fegley since we were about 5 years old back in Waverly. He and his wife Lori are the most supportive people I know, and Lori is the most over-the-top Central fan I know. Unless there's anyone else who is Motor C in her backyard. I see my college roommate, my first college roommate, Mark Ellingson, is here, and Dave Dahlstrom, I've also going back in Waverly for years. So many others. Most of all, thank you to all my former student workers and the athletes I got to know. You started as workers and athletes and became lifetime friends. Sonny and Abby. Abby, that was so much. It's so special to see you here, and Molly, and I see Lindsay here, and Stitz, and Jossie, and Brendan Casey, who didn't even go here. He worked here for years, an intern from Augustana College, and just blew me away when he showed up today, all the way from Chicago. I'm sure I'm missing people. I wanted to have like an hour appointment with each of you. Instead of just the 30 seconds we got over through the line. It's taken me 45 years, but I've finally discovered something. I'm free to leave. So I will. I've honestly not often minded being the last person to leave Packer Gym after a game, because I've been lucky enough to get paid to do things I love. But that can be someone else now. My family is skeptical that I will be able to do this part-time or not at all, but that's what I'm going to do. But please come back to see us. You're free to leave now too. But I hope to be around a long time yet, and hope to see you, because while I'm proud of my German heritage, I guess I'm also forever Dutch.